great to be joined by retired Captain John Frankman of the U.S. Army. A lot of great stuff to discuss. However, there's a lot of new conversation being brought up in the country over what's to be done about those who were slammed by a prior administration's view of the COVID-19 vaccine, and those who were serving either in federal service at the government level, or those, of course, who were serving in our military. I understand that you were forced out of the Army for refusing the COVID-19 vaccine. Right off the top of the bat here, give us a little bit of the details.
Sure. So I was a Special Forces Green Beret assigned to 7th Special Forces Group. I got to 7th Group in 2020, summer of 2020, took a team in that fall. And then in 2021, the shot was coming out of religious convictions. I chose not to get it and gave my guys that kind of flexibility too. Told them I wouldn't punish them. Because of that, the majority of my team didn't get the shot. So we lost out on deployments. My team time got cut short when I put a religious exemption in. My next assignment was going to be to teach ethics at West Point. However, I was not allowed to move while my religious exemption was pending. So having my career irreparably harmed, just waiting for my exemption to get denied, I chose to leave on my own. I left in summer of 2023. Even though the mandate was rescinded at the time, my career was already irreparably harmed. There was nothing I could do to repair the damage done, so I chose to leave the military anyway, and that's what happened to tens of thousands of others, not just the 8,600 that were kicked out, but upon potentially 80, 90,000 who chose to leave and are considered, quote unquote, voluntarily separated.
So those who weren't maybe forced out by just a direct pink slip kind of a situation, how was it communicated kind of on your evaluation, on your record, that you had denied taking this vaccine for exemption? How is that kind of kept as a black mark on you for those who tried to stay in and kind of weather the storm for a while?
Yeah, so leadership was well aware of which officers, which NCOs didn't get the shot. And even though they wouldn't directly hurt your evaluation reports because of it, there was definitely that stigma. And because the military made it such a readiness issue from the top down, they did everything legal and otherwise in order to force their service members to get the shot. So you might not have had a bad evaluation based specifically on the shot where you could pin it down to that, but we all kind of knew. And I even had an officer the one who gave me my misconduct report or who gave me that kind of evaluation or whatever, said that he saw the tea leaves, that if he had chosen not to get the shot, he would have been rated 50 of 50 majors as rated by the full-bird colonel.
Now, I had Graham Parsons as my ethics prof for a little bit there. So I understand the kind of individuals that do teach ethics at the military academy. So when you got the opportunity, you were going to be teaching ethics to a bunch of ragtag plebes from all over. What was the experience for you like when it was decided that, well, I mean, we know you've literally shown a case of ethics here in choosing a religious exemption, and then also as an 03, I'm giving your guys the choice whether or not to get so and supporting their decision. What did it feel like to have everything totally flipped around on you at a personal level? Was it a slow begrudgment or was it something different?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of slowly ticked up. The pressure was actually more before the mandate ever came in, because at that point, they didn't have the legal recourse to counsel you and say, you need to get this or else.
Just highly encouraged.
It was highly encouraged. And the way they highly encouraged it is they wouldn't allow you to travel for training. They took deployments away from people. You'd have to quarantine for 2 weeks, whereas those who were vaccinated were quarantined for 1. You'd have to mask when others wouldn't. In a training environment, my whole team, we were ordered to wear red tape on our gear and red wristbands. I mean,
I'm sorry, the language that I have is inappropriate to describe that. That is the most candy-coated nonsense. What logistics officer came up with that garbage? Excuse me. So since this time, you focused a lot on making sure that a lot of these wrongs are rectified. You've spent a lot of time making sure that those who maybe kind of silently walked through this and have been ignored by kind of the larger media, a lot of the senators and representatives who are supposed to be holding these things accountable. You're trying to share that spotlight with some of those who walked through that. What's that been like? Because starting that kind of advocacy from the ground up is a ton of work.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, but I felt God was pushing me to do that advocacy. So I got out, like I said, in July of 2023. I went on an 8-day silent retreat and then wrote an op-ed, and that just got traction. So I've been up on the Hill. And when the Republicans had the majority in the House, I wrote every member of the House Armed Service Committee telling them, you need to have hearings on this. And it's their prerogative. They have the authority to do it. They don't need Biden or the Senate, the Democrat Senate, to approve it, yet they didn't do it. that would have allowed Trump to understand everything that had happened in the military and to clean it up much, much quicker.
Right.
So that kind of frustration of not common sense stuff not happening. I mean, that's one reason I'm running for Congress right now, is to try to fix it and be an advocate for service members. But it's very frustrating to know that although there are people who are supposedly on your side, they're just kind of pushing it off to the side. They want to move on to other things, and they're only going to do what you want them to do when there's enough noise made about it.
I think that this is one of the reasons you've seen a lot of Americans elevate, for example, representatives who were on that Armed Services Committee, like Jim Banks, for example, over to the Senate. And now he's one of the guys that I think is kind of pushing these issues to get rectified, although I agree happening sooner.
Well, I mean, I spoke to him. So Matt Gaetz was my congressman. That's the seat I'm running for. And he took me to the State of the Union to discuss it. They had a hearing at the House Armed Services Committee about it. And when I spoke to Jim Banks, I thought there could have been more done even in those hearings. For instance, they brought on a lot of the Biden lackeys who would just lie to them outright. But unless you're bringing in service members, experts like Dr. Teresa Long, things of that nature, you're not going to get down to the root of the truth. You're just going to have it obfuscated through Biden officials whose job is to just defend the administration. So I think that just happy with many things Republicans are doing, and that the Department of War is doing, but this is something that can be taken seriously, and that there's just not the political will to really make it happen.
I appreciate your willingness to just kind of say, look, this is exactly what happened. This is what could have happened. There could have been more that was done. We get this bureaucratic morass, this just molasses covered garbage heap that consistently does, instead of filtering out the bad and the good getting through, it's the opposite. What do you think needs to be done on kind of the bureaucratic level, not just obviously regarding things from the chiefs of staff on down, but from the congressional levels? There's a lot of Congress writes a strongly worded letter critiques. What's something that being affected directly by a lot of these things, are there any concrete things you could give me that you would do right off the bat?
Sure. I mean,
you the magic wand.
For Congress, I would pass a medical freedom bill. I think we need a constitutional amendment. And I don't think our founding fathers would have ever imagined that we wouldn't have rights over our own bodies, what we put into it or not. So that would be the ultimate, let's fight for that. But there needs to be some kind of accountability. So it's great that the Department of War is investigating itself. That should happen on the congressional side too, where people look at everything that happened in the Department of War, Department of Defense during that time. The leaders need to be held accountable, and that can be through court-martials. It can also be through grade rank determinations, where you determine the last honorable level in which an officer has served, because many of them, it was an unlawful order, and there needs
Correct.
to be that communicated, right? Pete Hegseth said it was unlawful. It was unlawful because there were unlawful means to coerce service members, because religious exemptions were denied, but most of all, because there was no FDA approved drug available to service members. You can't mandate someone to take something experimental. So there needs to be just a whole retraining that happens. And I would put it in the NDAA that we need constitutional training. We have so many other random trainings that we do every year. Let's do a constitutional training, put it in our professional military education, so that our service members and leaders know what's within their rights and what's not, so something like this doesn't happen again.
Well, with how many advanced and basic trainings everyone's forced to sit through, so some O5 can tell us all about the wonders of using really kind words and not slapping somebody on the tail here. I mean, again, as an O3, I'm sure you knew how many times that we were forced to sit through that kind of garbage. How much time would it take to actually go through some of that congressional training? It wouldn't be that hard to institute.
No, it would not be that hard. And there's so many free trainings right now. I mean, you can just look at, Heritage Foundation. You can look at Hillsdale College. You can give them one of those constitutional. I'm sure that they would amend it and give it to service members to sit through. And I mean, I still do some military contracting. I still have to click through some of the, I don't think equal opportunity anymore, but the cyber awareness and trafficking of human persons, whatever. But just do that for the Constitution. And it doesn't have to be that complex. And it can just be an annual requirement that you do.
Again, I think that's pretty on point. Again, retired Captain John Frankman, former Army Green Beret. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much for your service. And I appreciate the ethical commitments that you've made. I can't tell you, not just on the active military side, but also for the contracting side of things, that kind of work is really appreciated far more than you know.
Yeah. And please have everybody go to dutytodisobeyfilm.com. We have a documentary coming out. That's why I'm on here. And we need people to go watch that film to understand what happened in the military, so that we can ensure that there's awareness and it doesn't happen again.
We'll make sure that's in the Chiron right below. As soon as you said it, flashed on the screen. It's in the description as well. Highly encourage everybody to go take a look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.